Have you ever sat in a quiet room, maybe late at night, and asked yourself a hard question? Am I about to make the biggest mistake of my life? Maybe you're engaged. Maybe the wedding's planned. Maybe everyone's excited. But something inside you isn't settled. Here's what I want you to know right now. That feeling, that hesitation, it's not weakness. It's not cold feet. According to family law attorneys and divorce mediators who've spent decades in courtrooms, that inner voice is often your subconscious recognizing patterns you haven't fully processed yet. Research published in the Journal of Family Psychology shows that individuals who reported pre-wedding doubts were significantly more likely to experience marital dissatisfaction and divorce within the first decade. Your gut is trying to tell you something, and today, we're going to listen to it. We're going to walk through 6 specific, well-documented warning signs that divorce court judges, mediators, and family therapists see repeatedly in cases that end badly. These aren't theories. These are patterns observed in real courtrooms, backed by legal precedent and psychological research. And if even one of these signs is present in your relationship right now, you need to pay very close attention. Before we get into these 6 signs, I want to know where you are in your journey. If you're currently engaged or seriously considering marriage, type "engaged" in the comments. If you're married and looking back with perspective, type "married." And if you're simply here gathering wisdom before making any decisions, type "learning." This isn't judgment, it's context. Knowing where you're starting from helps me understand who I'm speaking to today. And here's the thing. If what we discuss today gives you clarity, helps you avoid a devastating mistake, or simply makes you think more carefully about the most important contract you'll ever sign, I'd be grateful if you'd hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that this kind of honest, grounded conversation matters. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining this community. Every subscriber is a signal that we need more truth-telling content, not just highlight reels and fairy tales. The first warning sign divorce court reveals: she shows fundamentally different behavior around her family than she does around you. Picture this. When you're alone together, she's reasonable, flexible, she listens. But the moment her family enters the picture, her mother, her sister, her father, something shifts. Suddenly, decisions you both agreed on are back on the table. Plans change. Her tone changes. It's like you're negotiating with a different person. Family law attorneys call this family enmeshment, and it's cited repeatedly in divorce proceedings as a core source of marital breakdown. Dr. Kenneth Kramer, a licensed marriage and family therapist with over 30 years of clinical practice, has documented how adults who haven't emotionally separated from their family of origin bring that entire system into the marriage. You're not just marrying her. You're marrying her family's expectations, her mother's opinions, her father's approval or disapproval. Here's what happens in divorce court. Men describe years of trying to establish boundaries, only to be overruled. Financial decisions made jointly, then undermined after a phone call with mom. Parenting choices agreed upon, then contradicted after a family dinner. The pattern is so common that judges recognize it immediately in testimony. If you're seeing this now, before marriage, understand something clearly. It doesn't get better with a wedding ring. According to research from the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, family enmeshment issues that exist before marriage intensify after marriage, especially when children enter the picture. The legal system is filled with men who thought love would solve it. It didn't. This isn't about her being a bad person. It's about an unresolved developmental issue, and you cannot fix it for her. She has to recognize it and choose to address it. If she's defensive when you bring it up, if she accuses you of trying to separate her from her family, if she can't see the pattern at all, that's your answer. The second warning sign is that financial transparency is inconsistent or completely absent. Let's talk about something most men don't want to face. You're planning to legally bind yourself to another person, and you don't actually know her complete financial picture. Maybe she's vague about her credit score. Maybe she downplays her student loan debt. Maybe she has a shopping habit she jokes about, but you've never seen the credit card statements. Maybe there's family money she mentions sometimes, but the details are always fuzzy. Here's what divorce attorneys see constantly, and this comes directly from family law practitioners interviewed by Forbes and the Wall Street Journal in features on high-conflict divorces: financial infidelity. It's one of the top 3 reasons marriages end up in court: not affairs, not incompatibility, money, hidden debt, undisclosed spending, secret accounts. The American Institute of CPAs conducted a survey of certified divorce financial analysts, and the findings were stark. In over 40% of divorces involving financial disputes, one party had deliberately concealed assets, debts, or spending habits before and during the marriage. The financial damage to the unsuspecting spouse was often catastrophic. Think about what marriage actually is from a legal standpoint. It's a binding financial contract. You're merging assets. You're taking on shared liability. In community property states, her debt legally becomes your debt the moment you say, "I do." If she's not willing to sit down right now, before marriage, and lay out every account, every balance, every obligation with full transparency, that's not a small red flag. That's a legal risk you're choosing to accept. And here's the part that shows up in divorce court testimony over and over. When men finally discover the hidden financial truth, sometimes years into the marriage, and they confront it, the response isn't remorse. It's defensiveness, anger, accusations that he's being controlling or untrusting. If you can't have a calm, detailed, fully transparent financial conversation before marriage, you're stepping into a contract blind. Divorce judges see the aftermath of that blindness every single day. Men who are now legally responsible for debts they never knew existed. Men whose credit is destroyed. Men who are paying for spending patterns they never agreed to support. This is solvable right now, before the wedding. A simple conversation, full disclosure. If she resists that, you need to ask yourself why. The third warning sign is that she dismisses or minimizes your concerns when you bring them up. You know this feeling. You've gathered the courage to say something that's been bothering you. Maybe it's about how she speaks to you in front of others. Maybe it's about a pattern you've noticed in how conflicts get resolved. Maybe it's about intimacy, or respect, or how decisions get made. And when you finally voice it, calmly and clearly, what happens? She sighs. She rolls her eyes. She tells you you're being too sensitive. She says you're overreacting. Or worse, she turns it around and suddenly, you're the one apologizing for bringing it up in the first place. Dr. John Gottman, whose research at the University of Washington has tracked thousands of couples over decades, identified this pattern as one of the most reliable predictors of divorce. He calls it stonewalling and defensiveness, 2 of what he terms the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in relationships. When one partner consistently invalidates the other's concerns, the relationship doesn't just stay stuck. It actively deteriorates. Here's what shows up in divorce court. Men testify about years of unresolved issues, not because they didn't try to address them, but because every attempt was met with dismissal. Family therapists who work with couples in crisis report that by the time these relationships reach their offices, there's often a years-long history of one partner's concerns being treated as invalid, annoying, or evidence of personal weakness. And here's the critical part. This pattern doesn't exist in isolation. When your concerns are consistently minimized before marriage, what do you think happens after marriage when the stakes are higher? When there are children involved? When there's a mortgage and shared finances and legal entanglement? According to research published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, couples where one partner reported feeling chronically dismissed or invalidated before marriage showed a 73% higher rate of divorce within the first 7 years. That's not a small risk. That's a statistical certainty waiting to happen. If you're experiencing this now, test it. Bring up something legitimate, something reasonable. Watch the response. Does she hear you? Does she take it seriously? Does she show genuine interest in understanding your perspective? Or does she deflect, minimize, or counterattack? A person who loves you doesn't dismiss your reality. They don't make you feel small for having needs or boundaries or concerns. If that's happening now, before the legal binding, you're looking at a preview of your future. We're about halfway through these signs. If you're recognizing yourself in any of this, please let me know in the comments. A simple, seeing it, or number 3 hit home means the world. It confirms we're on the right track together. The 4th warning sign is that her past relationships all ended with her as the victim and the other person as the villain. Listen carefully to how she talks about her exes. Every single one of them was terrible. Every breakup was their fault. She was always the reasonable one. She was always the one who tried. They were controlling or emotionally unavailable or commitment phobic or abusive. Now, let me be clear. Some people do escape genuinely toxic or abusive relationships, and those stories deserve compassion and belief. But there's a pattern divorce attorneys and therapists see repeatedly that's different from that. Clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who specializes in narcissistic and high-conflict personalities, describes this as a failure to take personal accountability. In her research and clinical practice documented across multiple publications and interviews, she notes that individuals who consistently cast themselves as victims in every failed relationship often share a common trait: an inability to acknowledge their own role in relationship dysfunction. Here's what this looks like in divorce court. Men discover, often too late, that they're now the villain in her story, the same way all the previous men were. The pattern doesn't break. It repeats, and suddenly, you're the one being described to her friends, her family, her attorney, as controlling or neglectful or emotionally abusive, even when you know that's not the truth. Divorce mediators interviewed by Psychology Today consistently report that high-conflict divorces almost always involve one party who refuses to acknowledge any personal contribution to the marriage's failure. Everything is the other person's fault. There's no nuance. No shared responsibility, just blame. Before you marry someone, you need to know if they're capable of self-reflection. Can she look back at a failed relationship and say, "I made mistakes too"? Can she acknowledge her own patterns? Can she take ownership of her part even if the other person's part was larger? If every ex is a monster and she's always the innocent party, you're not getting the full story. And more importantly, you're seeing someone who hasn't done the internal work necessary to show up differently in the next relationship. Marriage doesn't fix this. It exposes it. And when it does, you'll find yourself sitting across from an attorney hearing a version of your marriage that's unrecognizable. Because in her story, once again, she'll be the victim, and you'll be the villain. Pay attention to this now, ask questions, listen to how she answers. If there's defensiveness, if there's an inability to see her own role in past failures, that's not something you can love away. That's a fundamental character issue that will define your future. The 5th warning sign is that she has different standards for herself than she has for you. You've probably noticed this already, even if you haven't named it yet. When she's late, it's because traffic was bad or her day was hectic. When you're late, it's disrespectful and inconsiderate. When she needs space or time with friends, that's healthy and necessary. When you need the same thing, you're being distant or uninvested in the relationship. When she's upset and raises her voice, she's just expressing her feelings, and you need to understand she's passionate. When you show frustration or anger, even calmly, you're being aggressive or scary or out of control. This dynamic has a name in psychological literature. It's called a double standard, and researchers at the University of Denver who study relationship equity have found that couples where one partner enforces different rules for different people have significantly lower relationship satisfaction and higher rates of dissolution. But here's where it gets serious from a legal standpoint. Family law attorneys who handle contentious divorces report a consistent pattern in their most difficult cases. One party believed throughout the marriage that different rules applied to them. They could make unilateral decisions, but joint decisions were required of their partner. They could spend freely, but their partner's spending was scrutinized. They could have privacy, but their partner's phone, email, and schedule were subject to inspection. In divorce proceedings, this often manifests as what attorneys call unreasonable positions. One party expects significant concessions while offering none. They expect understanding for their choices, but show no reciprocal understanding. Mediators and judges see it immediately, and it drags out proceedings, increases costs, and creates high-conflict outcomes. If you're seeing this now, before marriage, understand what you're looking at. You're looking at someone who fundamentally believes the relationship should revolve around their needs, their comfort, their standards. That doesn't change with marriage vows. According to the Gottman Institute's longitudinal studies, couples where one partner perceives fundamental unfairness in how standards are applied report chronic resentment, which is one of the strongest predictors of eventual divorce. Test this before you sign a marriage license. Notice if there's reciprocity. Notice if she holds herself to the same standards she holds you to. Notice if grace flows both directions or only one way. Because in divorce court, you'll be dealing with someone who believes they deserve more and should sacrifice less. And that position will cost you, financially and emotionally, in ways you can't imagine right now. This next sign is a profound one, and if you're still with me, I'd love your take. Comment "still here" below. It genuinely helps me gauge what content is most valuable for you, so I can create more of it. The sixth and final warning sign is that she views marriage as the finish line, not the starting line. Listen to how she talks about the wedding versus how she talks about the marriage. Is all the focus on the event? The dress, the venue, the guest list, the photos? Does she spend hours planning the ceremony but gets vague or dismissive when you try to talk about actual married life? When you ask about how you'll handle finances after marriage, does she have thoughts? When you bring up where you'll live, how you'll make decisions, what happens if one of you loses a job or gets sick, is she engaged in that conversation? Or does she just want to get back to talking about centerpieces? This matters more than most men realize. Dr. Terry Orbuch, a sociologist at the University of Michigan who has conducted one of the longest-running studies on marriage, found that couples who spent significant time discussing expectations, values, and practical logistics before marriage had dramatically higher marital satisfaction and lower divorce rates than couples who focused primarily on wedding planning. Her research, spanning over 3 decades and following hundreds of couples, revealed something crucial. Marriage requires ongoing intentional effort. It's not a destination you arrive at with a ceremony. It's a daily practice of communication, compromise, problem-solving, and adaptation. In divorce court, attorneys see the aftermath of finish-line thinking constantly. One partner believed that once they were married, the work was done. The pursuit was over. The commitment was secured. And so the effort stopped. The consideration stopped. The intentionality stopped. Men describe relationships where their wives seemed deeply invested before the wedding, but within months or even weeks afterward, something shifted. The attentiveness faded. The effort disappeared. The person who pursued them became the person who took them for granted. This isn't cynicism. This is pattern recognition based on decades of legal and therapeutic observation. The Huffington Post and The Atlantic have both published extensive pieces featuring family therapists and divorce attorneys discussing this exact phenomenon. The excitement about the wedding day versus apathy about the actual marriage. Before you get married, you need to know that the person you're marrying understands what marriage actually requires. Not the fantasy, not the Instagram version, the real thing, the daily choice, the ongoing work, the commitment that deepens rather than coasts. If all her energy is focused on the wedding and she shows little interest in or understanding of what comes after, you're marrying someone who's in love with an event, not a partnership. And when the event is over, you'll be left with someone who thought they already arrived while you're just beginning a journey they're not prepared for. Talk about the marriage, not just the wedding. See if she engages. See if she's thought about it. See if she has realistic expectations or just romantic fantasies. Her answers will tell you everything you need to know. So, these aren't just random observations. They are patterns noted by researchers, family law professionals, therapists, and men who lived through divorces they never saw coming. What I've shared with you today isn't meant to make you cynical or afraid. It's meant to make you wise. Your appeal, your value, your future. All of it depends on the choices you make right now. Not after the wedding, not after the problems start. Right now. Marriage can be one of the most fulfilling experiences of your life, but only if you're marrying the right person for the right reasons with your eyes wide open. These 6 signs are a gift. They're a chance to pause, to look clearly, to ask hard questions before you sign a binding legal contract. I'm curious, which of these 6 signs resonated most with you? Are you seeing any of them in your relationship right now? Or maybe you've been through a divorce and you're recognizing these patterns from your own past. Share your story in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what another man needs to hear today. If this conversation added value to your day, if it gave you clarity or simply made you think more carefully about the most important decision you'll make, please let me know by hitting the like button. It makes a real difference in getting this message to men who need to hear it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to join this growing community of men seeking clarity, truth, and confidence in their decisions. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. There's more honest conversation coming, and I don't want you to miss it. Thank you for your time and attention. This is your space for real talk about relationships, and I'll see you in the next video.